You had mentioned something about, hiring for team cohesion, right? And, you could hire a superstar, but if that superstar is oil in your water and taints the whole thing, then that superstar really doesn't lift your team. It actually could hurt your team. So when you're actually hiring throughout your career, when you go to hire people, when you look for people and you said, hey, this is person, how would they work with that team? How do you prioritize that fit and that complementary set of skill sets in a way where you know those early on? Are there any things that you take into account or do when you're saying, how would you know if this person is a good fit? Outside of, I get it, they have to have some basic skill sets. And do you have any examples in your career where you've said, yeah, this hire or this person that was brought in for a role, obviously no names, how that actually positively impacted projects or how your team grew or things of that nature?
No, it's a great question. I think there's a couple different things. One, again, I'm not a resume reader in the sense of I'm not going to hire you based off of all your credentials without there being a cohesive environment. And you picked up on that point where it can go bad is you can hire a well accoladed person, superstar, but if the personality dynamic is off, it will create a toxic environment and you will drive off other good employees. And I kind of think about it when you correlate it to sports. You might have a really high paid, super performing teammate. Well, that's great. That's great for the organization. It may bring in a lot of revenue, but how does it really impact the rest of the team? Think about that. I mean, think about if you have that standout that is not well embraced by the team, it's going to create animosity. And you got to be in tune with that. And that's why what I like to do as a hiring manager is incorporate potential teammates into that interview process. A lot of people do panel interviews with other leaders and things like that, and that's great. And it should be, can be beneficial, should be beneficial. But at the end of the day, who is this individual going to work with? Those are the folks that really need to be part of the hiring process. Not only does the team themselves, I think, appreciate the fact that they're part of the process and part of the decision making, you have to empower them to be able to provide feedback. And in fact, they're helping you make that decision. At the end of the day, they have to work with these people. So you need to make sure that it's a good fit. And I think a good example of this is I had hired somebody many years ago, and it was, I think, kind of along the lines of what I was just explaining. Was a good qualified candidate, probably not the most qualified, definitely not the most qualified candidate. And there was just something about him. You ever get that spidey sense of, you just know that they're a genuine person. And I mean, we're talking, this is 10 plus years ago. So I did just as I explained. I brought in a potential coworker, young lady that was working on the team. She was part of the decision-making process, part of the interview process. And after we had a scheduled 1 hour interview, I think it went for like 2.5 hours. And I remember he was just sitting there sweating and he's just rubbing his forehead. But he was just a genuine good guy. And when he came into the team, he made an immediate impact. Everybody loved him. He was great to deal with. In contact center space, you're really, in technical contact center space, you're dealing with end users. You're the face of, in some cases, maybe the face of the technology department because you have the most face-to-face interaction with the end users. And that's where it comes in important when you have a good personality to express that out. You're getting all this feedback from the end users, great experiences. That this young man was just phenomenal. Had so much great feedback. He, in fact, still works at that particular employer where I had hired him at. And through his career, he's been promoted a number of times, both through me and after my departure. And it just exemplifies what a great person this was and how impactful he was to the team.